Okay guys, this is the Luxe X review. So we're gonna start this thing off with a little bit of a history lesson. So back in the 80s, we're gonna say like the mid 80s, there was a company called Smart Parts. Smart Parts was very popular. They made lots of very popular things, like the Shocker SFT, the Freak Barrel kits, which we're still using today, max flow regulators, all kinds of things. But in the mid 2000s, I wanna say like 2006, I believe, just thinking off the top of my head, they released the Ion. The Ion was a $300 gun, and there was really nothing else like it. It was a very, very good mid-range gun. We saw that really help foster these newer, better guns, like the Empire Axis, and then now I'd say the Etha 2. Both of those guns, I think really without the Ion, would not have been possible because they kind of made those lower end mid-range guns shoot better like those $1,000 plus guns. Smart Parts did have their $1,000 guns though. They had the Shocker line of paintball guns. So they had the Shocker SFT and the Shocker NXT. They were both very popular like 2003-ish to maybe like 2009. And then in 2010 though, Smart Parts claimed bankruptcy. But before that, in 2008, they formed DLX. DLX did not have to go through that bankruptcy as they were like made a separate company from Smart Parts. That's why we're still having the Luxe. So DLX brought us the Luxe. Everyone was very excited about the Luxe as they kind of saw it as like the new version of those like SFT and NXT Shockers. The bolt was very similar. The shot quality was also very similar to those Shockers. So it was constantly compared and like just said to be the new Shocker. But then it got very confusing when in 2015, yeah, I checked my notes real fast. So yeah, the same people that started Smart Parts and DLX formed Shocker Paintball, and then really brought us the new Shocker with the Shocker RSX, the Shocker XLS, and then now the mechanical version, the Shocker CVO. So that's just a backstory of what DLX is. There's a lot of moving parts there. There was Smart Parts, then they formed DLX. Smart Parts went away, and then now Shocker Paintball are back. So it's just the naming that's very confusing, so we want to like clear some things up. Hopefully that wasn't more confusing. If it was, leave a comment below and complain. So we first saw the Luxe X last year at World Cup, so nearly a year ago. So I'm definitely late to this whole review bandwagon thing. One thing that I've kind of like not liked about the DLX guns though, or the Luxes, is that they're just kind of boring, right? I mean, I think we were very excited 10 years ago when we saw the first version, and they've just kind of slowly changed. I don't know if that's always necessarily a problem, right? I think we see that with other things in like other industries, like, I don't know, say phones, like the iPhone, right? It's just incrementally changed, but over that years, over those, what, now 11 years, I think, of iPhone? I don't know, somewhere in there. If we look at that first model all the way to like the new current version, it's a lot different. Planet Eclipse did the same thing with the Ego, right? Like they initially released the 05, and then we just saw like incremental changes along the way, and it got to be a better gun. But I think that like those incremental changes aren't working anymore. We're in a market with high-end paintball guns where Planet Eclipse is just dominating. So DLX needed to change some things to be able to compete with them, and they've changed a lot. So if you're familiar with the Luxes, you'd kind of notice on the outside, the thing really hasn't changed all that much. The ergonomics are about the same, the length, the size, weight is all very similar to really that 1.0 Luxe all the way up until this X. I don't think that's bad, as most people kind of really like the ergonomics. They like that more stretched out feel. I think that stretched out feel for me and really everyone else, it kind of adds a more stable shooting platform, right? So running and shooting is easier, kind of snap shooting is easier. I think all gun skills are kind of easier when you have like this longer stretched out gun. And that's something we've seen the other manufacturers kind of pick up. Luxe really kind of started that stretched out thing, and then we've seen like Eclipse and Empire, MacDev, sort of everyone go to that longer style gun. So overall, I think people are mostly happy with the ergonomics, but for me, right, like I always seem to talk about this, like I have big hands, and then this doesn't fit my hands well. The frame is very narrow, and I don't like the distance between the trigger and the back of the frame. Because my whole palm, I mean, you can see, it just kind of like covers the entire gun. So grabbing it is just weird for me, and I like to hold guns like this. I think that really getting a good grip on the trigger frame allows me to be a little bit more stable when I'm shooting, but when I hold guns like this, I kind of have to shoot with the middle part of my finger and not my fingertips. And when I hold the gun like this, my hand is just like too far forward and close to the trigger. And just the distance between like my knuckles and fingers or whatever just makes it difficult to shoot. So I kind of have to hold it weird and at this funky angle. I don't like it, and when I hold it like this too, I still kind of hit the side and don't pull the trigger back all the way. A lot of it has to do with this trigger too. I think that having a different style trigger, if I have like the scythe trigger on there, or if I could get a deuce trigger for this thing, I would like it much more. I'm not a fan of these flat triggers. I complain about this like frame size thing a lot, but I do think it's kind of personal to me, as ergonomics and feel really are feel, right? So it's a good idea maybe to try to hold this thing and don't take my like, I don't like it as like real advice or something, I don't know. That also kind of leads to the foregrip too. So they've made the foregrip smaller by making those finger grooves deeper on the X compared to the Ice. The Ice also had those grooves, but they just weren't as deep. And I think getting rid of even more material makes that foregrip even smaller, and for big hand Brad, even harder to hold. They do have like a rubber foregrip though. You can take off that front piece and then put the rubber on there. Having that rubber adds that material back and does make it feel a little bit better. I don't have one here to put on there, so I didn't put one on. So the ergonomics and that trigger are really not much different from the previous Luxes. They've not also changed the feed neck or those eye covers, at least from the Luxe Ice. And that's good. I mean, the feed neck works very well. It's a lever feed neck, you know, you got the dial-y thing on the side to make micro or fine tune how well that hopper is fitting in that feed neck. And then the eye covers you can also remove without tools. There's just a latch on the side. They kind of just fall off. You can remove the eye covers pretty easy. It's not a difficult thing. And it's just nice to be able to remove eye covers. You can just clean stuff easier. It's not like super unique to the Luxe X. We definitely see it on most of the other high-end guns out there. So I also have a problem like using the on-off. I bite my fingernails. I have this fingernail biting problem that I've had for decades. I don't know, it's an issue. And I just can't use the on-off very well. I think you gotta have like big ass fingernails to be able to like get in there and be able to use it quickly. But because it's so flush, it kind of just makes it difficult to use. And it's even worse when I put gloves on. It's just annoying, and I kind of wish it had a knob. I much prefer the old on-offs that had knobs, or maybe like the pop style, like the Planet Eclipse one, or like the easy on-off from Inception Designs. Those are all very nice. I just don't like the on-off. It's not like it's that big of a problem. I can still turn the gun off, like the air off, but it's just annoying. Underneath those eye covers though are new ball detents. And really ball detents that are used in the Shocker XLS and the CVO. So detents are normally made of rubber or hard plastic, and they kind of just like poke into the breech of the gun. They poke in there to stop the paintballs from just rolling out the barrel when you're not shooting. So they kind of have to have like two different tensions, right? So they're kind of a difficult thing to make, right? They have to have enough tension or enough strength to just stop the paintball from just rolling out the barrel. And they also have to be light enough though to move out of the way when that ball needs to go out the barrel when the gun shoots. In the mid-2000s though, we saw some companies struggle with making detents. So the guns just started to become a lot more easy on paint. They were able to handle that very fragile paint. So manufacturers were just making paintballs more brittle. And it was kind of hard there to make a detent that was hard enough to stop the paintball from rolling out, but then soft enough or make a spring that was light enough to allow that paintball to go by easily when the gun shot. I mean, sometimes the detents in that rubber or that spring were too hard. And when the ball would go by, it just clipped the detent and then paint would break in the gun. The reason I bring that up is really I think because the X detents or those Shocker XLS detents are gonna be very easy on paint. So they use that lever system and they have a spring. So when the ball is in the breech, because it's really that lever, there's a lot of pressure pushing on that ball and holding that ball in place when you're not gonna shoot. As soon as you shoot though, and it puts pressure on the back of that ball, because it's that lever, they go out of the way very smoothly and they're not gonna cause breaking paint. And because they pivot there, I think that they're not gonna wear out nearly as fast as normal ball detents. So they should wear very easy and really have good performance. So I like them. We've seen them be successful on the Shocker RSX and the XLS, so it's a good upgrade, switching away from those just standard ball detents. So those eye covers are coming off easy, but it's kind of like the theme of the Luxe X. So the frame is also coming off easy. You just take the bolt out, bolt comes out really easy. It still has that very easy, quick to remove bolt system. Then there's a latch on the bottom underneath that bolt. The latch just pushes up, then you flip over the gun and there's another latch on the front of the trigger frame that you pull back and then the frame just kind of comes off. And as you can see now, everything is wireless. The Ice introduced us to their wireless eyes, where the wires connected just to the bottom mounting point on the bottom of the body, and then there were contact points inside the frame. Now the same thing is happening with the solenoid, so you don't have to unplug the solenoid when you're taking the frame off. It just makes stuff easier and quicker, and it's just cleaner and simpler to do. To get to that solenoid though, you have to take the side of the grips off. And DLX have added the new snap grips on the side. There's a little cutout for your finger. You just kind of like pry off the bottom, you can pry off the top. And it's really nice because they kind of just like snap over. You can also see on the inside of there a USB-C connector. So the thing is not using a proprietary charger anymore, and you can just use any USB-C cable. So you can plug it into your car, a battery, or use the included wall adapter. It's cool. I like USB-C's universal. Lots of stuff is USB-C, phones, computers, all kinds of stuff. So it's just good to see that universal charging set up now in the X. And you are charging a new battery in the X. The X's battery is 3 times the size. You're probably not going to get 3 times the amount of shots, but definitely more than you'll get off the old guns. And the battery is really cool where it's stored at. So it's just right in the front of the gun. It's really in the same location that the Ice had the battery and all the previous Luxes, but you remove it much, much differently. You just pull out this little orange tab, and the battery just kind of falls out the front. That's very nice. On the previous guns, you had to like take the speaker off, and it was kind of an involved process to remove and replace the battery. Now, if you forget to charge your battery before you leave, you can just pop in that extra one. And they do sell an extra battery kit, so you can get like an extra wall charger and the battery. So you could like charge, I don't know, 2 batteries at a time or something. It's just very nice, and swapping out the battery is way easier. And I did say speaker because the Luxe is the only gun that's gonna talk to you when you turn it on. Some people like this feature, some people hate it, I can't stand it. One of the first things I did when I went to play with this thing is turn the speaker off. I don't really want it to talk to me every time I'm turning the gun on. I find it kind of annoying. This is what it sounds like.
Powering on. Welcome to the Luxe experience. Battery level 100%. Firing mode NXL.
It's all right, it's just winded. Like it's just a long thing. You turn it on, you're just waiting there. Just kind of waiting for it to be quiet. I don't like that. I find it's useful programming though. It just makes it a lot easier to like scroll through menus, and then having that like audible, like dwell 15. You like are like, okay, it's at 15 because you can hear it and you can read it. So I think for programming it's cool. But other than programming mode, I just turned the voice thing off. I find it quite annoying. They are using a new speaker though that is hidden, which I definitely like. You can get to that speaker just by turning the 2 tabs on the outside of this little protector plate. So I definitely like how that has that protection plate on the outside, because the previous guns had the speaker wide in the open, and it was really common for it to get punctured or just damaged, and then either just stop working or just sound really awful. So it's cool that it's protected now, and should continue to work forever, hopefully. So for sure the biggest change to the Luxe X is that bolt system, the X core. And for a long time, like I said, right, the Luxes have kind of been the same, so the bolt hasn't changed all that much. I think the Ice is probably where we saw the biggest change to the bolt system. We saw the thing have that new ceramic coating. I think it's ceramic. Either way, had a lower operating pressure, it was more reliable, and then air efficiency improved a little bit. With the X though, yeah, it's radically different. So since the 1.0 came out, the Luxe was probably one of the better shooting guns, right? Like I said, it was really quiet and smooth and didn't kick a lot, all that stuff. The issue is that it was not reliable at all. And they have gotten better, right? Like over time, the Luxes have gotten more reliable. But the issue is that like, I think opinions and like preferences are changing. When the Luxe came out, it was kind of okay to have a gun that maybe was not as reliable. But now, like, people want extreme reliability. And the Luxe Ice, while better than the previous guns, was still not on par with Planet Eclipse. And at this point, Planet Eclipse guns are just dominating paintball. So I feel like DLX had to do something. In introducing this new X-Core bolt system, makes their gun just more reliable. And over time, I think we have seen that over this whole year since this gun has been out. The X-Core and the Luxe X is considerably more reliable than those previous guns. I don't think it puts it on par with the CS2 or the Planet Eclipse guns, but at this point, it's reliable. And I don't think I've ever been able to say that about any DLX or Luxe before. But like I did say, people loved those guns because they were smoother and quieter and all that stuff. And the Luxe X certainly shoots considerably different than the previous guns. There's no question that it's louder, it kicks more. But I, for one, kind of like that, right? Like I've always said that I don't like the way the Luxes shoot. I don't like that super airy, like kind of lazy shot. I prefer that gun that kicks a little bit more and has a little bit more feedback. And I find that with the Luxe X, I have that more feedback and like increased kick. That's kind of a weird thing to like, but I like that. I like to know the gun's shooting and just not kind of like the Luxes normally shoot. So overall, I like the thing. I think this is the first Luxe that I have ever said I liked or really kind of feel comfortable, we'll say, recommending to people. I mean, my problem always with the Luxes and with the X is the ergonomics. I just don't like the way the thing feels. But like my real problem before was that they just weren't reliable enough. It's hard to say like go buy something and like recommend stuff to people when like I kind of don't trust it and I'm not sure if it's gonna work. But with the Luxe X, I think adding that X-Core bolt system, it just makes the thing more reliable, makes me trust it more, and then I like to, trust things and at least know things are gonna work so I can recommend them. I think adding the toolless frame kind of gives a little bit more value than you were getting before. It's a feature that no one else has. You can't get that on another gun. So being able to remove the frame quick is just kind of cool. Like the new detents, like all the new electronic stuff, like how there's no wires on the inside. I like how they're protecting the board now. USB-C is awesome. Battery removal's cool. I don't know, I like the Luxe X. I think it's an overall cool paintball gun. If you've got more questions about these things, I don't know, ask a comment below. You don't ask comments. I keep saying ask comments. Leave a question below in the comments. I think having that added competition also kind of like makes DLX want to make their products better. And not just designed better, but like physically better, right? Like using better tooling and like better materials. Because I do feel like maybe with the Ice a couple years ago, their products started to be made better. I think that added competition from Eclipse too is kind of like push the DLX and Luxe guns to be made better. When they first started out, they're a little bit wonky and like maybe not made the best, but they have gotten considerably better over the years. And the Ice is put together and made very well. Everything's super clean, fits together well, the milling's good, anodizing's good, so it's made very, very well. I mean, you'd come to expect that from a $1,500 paintball gun, but some of these guns aren't made that well. And the DLX, the Luxe X now, I just made very well and kind of getting really close to the build quality of Planet Eclipse. So it's good to see that. It's good to see them being like maybe forced into making a higher quality product.